The views and opinions shared on Taken Too Soon are those of the guest and don't necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the host and contributors. This podcast discusses mature themes and may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Dwayne Lackey went out February 8th, 2014 with the mission, passed along from Holly's mother Wilma by way of his wife Dawn. Just walk around the Raintree Trace property. She has to be there.
And she said, I'll ask him. I don't know if Danny will let us. I said, well, don't ask Danny. I said, just get out of the truck and go looking,
Last seen around 10 p.m. February 3rd, Holly's body was found in her own backyard 5 days later. As soon as Holly's sister Angela got to the crime scene, she insisted on seeing the hands of Holly's estranged husband, Dusty Strickland.
They told us she was beat to death.
She said she was beat to death, and I wanted to see his hands.
This is Taken Too Soon, a podcast by The Times.
We sat down with Holly's mom, Wilma Patterson, and Holly's sister, Angela Dale, to talk about Dwayne's discovery February 8th, 2014. Dwayne and his wife Dawn are related to Holly's in-laws, Danny and Angie Baker. So what do y'all remember from the first couple weeks of February? What was the mindset for Holly that you know about?
I just knew that she had called Monday the 3rd and said that they were coming up the weekend of the 8th to spend the weekend with us, because she had called me or texted me at work to see if I was off that weekend, and I was.
And was she planning to come up to LJ to look at some apartments?
She didn't say anything to me about looking for apartments, but I think she did Angela.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I was at work and she just, texted real fast.
We were going to go look that Saturday. She was going to go to Canton and Jasper to look for apartments because that's where her boyfriend was living.
What was the situation where she was living at the time in Oakwood on Raintree Trace?
She lived with the Bakers, and I think she just wanted to come home.
So when did you find out that she was missing?
The 5th. Angie Baker called Mom and wanted to know if we had seen or heard anything from Holly. And we hadn't since Monday. The last text I got from her was at 4:59.
What was the text about?
Her coming up, and she was sick, and I was getting sick. It just said, hope you feel better, love you too, see you Saturday.
So let me ask you, when Angie Baker called and asked you, have you seen her? Have you seen Holly? What's kind of the feeling? Was that an odd phone call for you to receive?
It was. Me and Christine Hicks, my best friend, we were having lunch at White Columns. You were at work. And I had just got off work and met her over there. And it was at 10 minutes after 2 when she called me. I looked at my phone because, I was with my friend, and I said, oh my God. I said, Angie Baker's calling me. Why is she calling me? And I just texted back. I was trying to pay the bill, and I just texted back, I'll call you in just a few seconds, Well, she called back before I could get the bill paid and get outside. So I gave Christine the money and the bill and everything. And I said, will you pay this? And I'll run out here and call her. I said, because that's odd. She never called me. And when I called her, she said, have you seen Holly? And I said, no. I said, she texted me yesterday or Monday and said they were coming up to spend the weekend this weekend. I said, what's going on? And she said, we can't find her. And I said, where's her kids? And she said, oh, they're right here. And I said, then Holly's there. She said, her car's here and her purse is here, but she's not here.
More than 60 miles away, all Wilma can do is worry. Her mind kept returning to the same refrain. If Holly's kids were there, if her keys are there, then she's there too.
And I said, Holly ain't going to leave them kids. And she said, no, she never would. And she didn't. Without letting, somebody know where she was going or whatever. And she said, well, I was wondering if you thought I should make a missing persons report. And I said, when did she disappear? And she said, we got up Tuesday and she wasn't here. And I said, that's when you should have made a missing persons report. She said that she had read McKenna Bible stories and told her to go get in the bed with Mama. And she got out of her lap and went and got in the bedroom with Holly because she slept with Holly. That's the last time that they saw her was Monday night. And she called me Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
So they were going to wait till the kids got in from school, and then they were going to go and do a missing persons report.
What was your initial reaction? Was there like an overwhelming sense of dread, or were you like, oh, she'll show up? Or because she wasn't with the kids, did that immediately set off alarm bells for you?
Yep.
And then it took 5 days. So over that 5 days that she had been missing, kind of what happened in that 5 days that
we
she was
went
missing?
over
Thursday, the 6th. First, we went to the Oakwood Police Department, and then we had to go to Hall County because it was in the county instead of the city, I guess.
Yeah.
They didn't call 911. They just stopped by well, first she said it was closed.
Yeah, that's true.
They just stopped by the sheriff's office to make the report. So we were trying to find out where we needed to make a report in case they didn't.
Right.
So we went to Hall County, and they did, in fact, make one. It was like at 5 something, I think, that evening. So they were going to send an officer out. Now, we went early in the morning, and we kind of walked around the property a little bit, what Danny would allow.
Yeah.
I mean, even Michael was talking the other day, my ex-husband, about how he kept leading us away from the pool area and everything.
Which in context that's right where she was found 5 days later.
We stayed there all day long, waiting on the officer. He got there about, 5?
Yeah.
4:35. It was already getting dark.
Investigator Ronald Roush with the Hall County Sheriff's Office was the first person on Holly's case.
And what did they do initially when they came out there?
Detective Roush?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. Didn't search her car, didn't look in the bedroom, didn't do nothing.
Didn't walk the property.
And told me if I had heard from her to let them know so they wouldn't still be looking. That she was probably out partying.
And is that something that Holly was known to do?
No.
And he actually told Angie Baker, she said, well, we had to wait till she'd been gone for 24 or 48 hours or something like that. And he said, no, ma'am. He said, you people watch too much TV. He said, when you got up, he said, say at 7 o'clock to get the kids off to school, and she wasn't here. He said, if that's out of her routine, he said, you should have called us at 10 after, especially seeing her car in the driveway, her purse here, and her children here.
Now, that being said, her car, her purse, and all that was still at the house, but her cell phone was not.
Mm-mm. Her clothes were laid out for work. She had her W-2 forms printed out.
Her W-2 forms the night before.
To go have her taxes done.
So every indication from what you could see, it wasn't like she was packing up to leave or anything like that. And so that was on Thursday.
Mm-hmm. And we brought Logan home with us. And they didn't tell the kids that their mom was missing till...
Neither the Bakers nor anybody else.
Till Thursday. Wednesday or Thursday, because when Logan got off the bus, he said his mom, did you know my mom's missing? And I said, that's what I was told. Now, McKenna didn't. She never mentioned it. She was sitting in my lap at the kitchen table, but she never mentioned it.
Logan went to stay with Wilma, though he had already spent a good deal of time with his grandmother early on in his life. Around the time that Logan was 6 months old, Holly was given a 5-year sentence for giving a ride to someone involved in a robbery, according to Holly's family.
And kind of after you brought Logan home, how did you keep up with what was going on in the missing persons investigation?
We just called. We would call the Bakers, and we would call Roush. Called him too.
What kind of things were they saying to you during that?
We were there Thursday waiting for the detective to get there. Her phone, Angie's phone, kept going off. And she jerked it out of her pocket and she said, that's my son. And she said, I'm not talking to him right now. She said, I've tried to call him since Monday, and said Monday night's the last time I talked to him. So me and Angela are like side-eyeing each other, you know.
When we're talking about her son, just for clarity, that is Dusty, correct?
Yes.
She hadn't seen either one of them since that Monday.
She made it out like he was MIA too.
Yeah.
Like almost insinuating that they
were together.
Right.
Yeah. Which, I mean, that could have very well been true, but that's not the case.
Mm-mm.
If you don't mind, if you guys could give us some kind of outsider's perspective of Holly and Dusty's relationship, especially there towards the end?
They loved each other, but they were very toxic for each other.
They were separated for like
Probably
2 years.
nothing or no one could keep them two apart. Whether he had a girlfriend or she had a boyfriend, if he called, she was there. I don't know. It was weird.
So let me ask you, what was the range of emotions from the moment that you heard that she was missing till she was found?
She was missing from Monday night, but we didn't know anything until Wednesday. So from Wednesday until Saturday, it was a roller coaster. First, you're worried, and then you get mad. How could she do this? Where is she at? Especially when they're saying, oh, she's just out partying, which we didn't really believe that. But then,
even the Bakers said no, she would not leave the kids here like that without letting us know where she was going or what she was doing.
So that kind of leads us to Saturday, and that was when she was found. And she was found by Dwayne Lackey. Did someone ask him to go search the property? Was it?
I did.
And why Dwayne?
They called.
they're the better of them.
Yes. And I like Dwayne and Dawn both. She said they were going to check on McKenna. And I said, Dawn, I said, she has to be there. I said, will you ask Dwayne if he would walk around the property and see if she's not there? I said, she's there. And she said, I'll ask him. I don't know if Danny will let us. I said, well, don't ask Danny. I said, just get out of the truck and go look and, he was at work anyway. So we talked, I guess, till it was about 10:30, and I left the house. And I had just got to the store. I guess it's about 10 till 11. And Angie Baker had called. And I had one foot out of the car and had reached back to get my pocketbook. And, I had answered the phone. She said, Wilma, well, they found her. And I said, well, is she okay? What's going on? And she said, they beat her to death. And I don't know where my phone was or anything. The next thing I really remember is I could hear this woman screaming. And I thought, oh my God, what is wrong with that woman? It sounds like her soul is being ripped out of her body. And then she came outside and she grabbed me, and I thought, that woman's me. And she said, what is it, Mama? What's going on? And I said, they said, she's dead. And she said, who did? And I said, Angie Baker. And she said, where's your phone? And I said, I don't even know. And I still don't know. So then I threw up. And she called Michael, her ex-husband, and he came to the store and took us to Gainesville.
Did you ever find out from Angie Baker why she delivered that message the way that she did? Because that ended up not being the case.
She went out there and saw Holly. And that's the only thing I can figure out. I don't know if it's from what she saw or what, because I never got to see her.
And when you got there, what did the scene look like?
Friends and family.
Exactly. There was people everywhere. And we had to park on the side of the road. And we had to walk to the house. And there's this idiot cop out there with a little table set up with a paper on it. And he was, come on, if yins are coming. And I'm like, it's all I can do to stand up, And Angela said, this is her fucking mom. I have a little respect. And it was just like, no, So we had to sign in. Roush came out of the house, I think it was, or around the side of the house. I don't know which way he came, but anyway, he comes up to me and puts his arm around me and is telling me, we'll take care of her. We'll find out who done this and all this, And I'm like, I don't even know what happened, basically. Just that she was dead, And they told us that we could go to the patio, I think they called it, or deck or something. But anyway,
Poolside.
Yeah. So we were allowed to go straight through the house. And Angie was out there, and
Angie's friend.
yes. And Danny was upstairs drunk.
They said he wasn't a drinker and that he just came home and started drinking immediately. And then him and Dusty got in a fight and law enforcement had to separate them. Dusty was outside when we got there.
He never spoke to me at all.
I went to Dusty as soon as we got there and talked to the cop because he was standing out there because I wanted to see his hands.
Because they told us she was beat to death.
She said she was beat to death, and I wanted to see his hands. And he was upset. He was kind of bouncing back and forth. I mean, he was really upset.
If you could paint a picture of the backyard there at the Baker's house, where was Holly found in relationship to the house?
There was the deck that we was on. There was the pool, which had a fence around it, and she was just on the other side of the fence.
And she'd go out to the pool to take phone calls or just kind of reflect.
Her daughter slept with her, and she was in school. And when she talked to her friends or fought with Dusty or whatever, argued with him, then she would go outside to keep from keeping McKenna up because she had to go to school. And she would either sit on the deck or she would go sit on that bucket up there and under the street light.
Were you ever able to learn more about how she was found?
Dwayne found her. He said he just walked up. Basically, they must have just got to the house and he got out and just walked to where she was.
Was there ever the moment where you just go, my goodness, how can you not look right there on the dang property?
Every time.
And what was the reaction you'd get, or what's the response?
It was just like, we thought she'd left with somebody. And that was really it. I mean, just a non-answer, I guess you'd call it.
From everything you had gathered from the Bakers, had they actually said that they had looked on the property at all in those days leading up to it?
They had noticed that the gate was open where you would go, from the deck to go around the pool, and they had closed it. If you had a dog in your house that stayed in your house and it got out, you would walk every inch of your property till you found that dog. Would you not?
Hey, true crime junkies of North Georgia, are you aware of what's going on around you? Find out by signing up for our free newsletters from the Times. You'll get local news in your inbox daily, including at least one free article a day about what's happening in Hall County. And now back to the show.
How did the investigation start in relation to you? Like, what were you learning on the early days of the investigation?
Well, that was on a Saturday, and I think it was like Monday or Tuesday we got to go to Gainesville and be interviewed.
What kind of things did they ask you when you came in to talk to them? If
she had been known to do that, and I said no.
If she had any enemies or knew anybody that wanted to hurt her.
And at that time, could you think of anyone?
I still don't know anybody that wanted her.
Investigator Roush told Wilma that Holly's case was his first murder investigation. Roush had been promoted to the role of investigator on November 7th, 2013, after 10 years with Hall County. When Holly died, he had been in the position for 3 months.
How odd is this? The same officer, detective, whatever, that showed up for the missing persons is the lead and murder investigator when they find her body Saturday. And he's brand new.
Is that Roush?
Mm-hmm. Early on, he would call, but he never had updates. And he would ask me, what have you heard? What? I'm in LJ. I'm 64 miles away from where her body was found. I thought that was kind of odd. He kept telling me the whole time he had the case, see, this is my first murder case. See, this is my first murder case. And I had it with that. And I said, well, guess what? It's my first murder case too. And I can guarantee you, I don't want another one. But you're planning on making your living at doing this. And it was just unreal. And
we would call and call and call. He would never return our calls.
And then when he did, it was like, I'm going to go to some prison and talk to this person and see if they know anything about it. I don't even know this person. I've never heard her mention it.
The rumor mill was grinding out gruesome stories about what happened to Holly, spreading around town and posted in comment sections below news stories.
Well, when she was just missing, they would call and said that somebody had saw her on the side of 85 with a sign that said, need money, lost my job, lost my kids, or something like that. And we knew that was stupid. Then after her body was found, all I had heard was that she was beat to death. Nobody told me how she was actually killed.
We didn't know for a long time.
I would hear that her throat was cut and her head was just barely attached, that she had been gutted and her guts were laying on the ground. She'd been stabbed 50 to 80 something times, and that just horrible, horrible stuff. And none of it was true.
So when did you actually find out about the gunshot?
I guess it was like 3 weeks later when I went to pay Billy Bernhardt on her funeral.
They kept it quiet because I guess they said that only the killer would know how she truly died. So they didn't release that until a year or so later.
And they really didn't also mention how they think that she died in terms of the suicide, homicide.
They didn't think it was foul play.
Did they give you any indication why they were against foul play at the beginning?
Because they didn't see any wounds or marks on her.
Do you remember finding out that news and how you were told?
We knew that she didn't just go out there and fall over. We knew somebody had hurt her, pretty much. I just don't know why they didn't know.
So how many investigators have touched this case since 2014?
We're on the 5th one.
Does that instill a lot of confidence in you?
No.
If you had to categorize a way in which you think your daughter's murder has been investigated, how would you categorize that?
I don't think it has been. They didn't go through that house. They didn't go through her car. They didn't interview the neighbors, as far as I know.
By the time they figured out it was a homicide, how much stuff was missing?
Has there been anything in this entire time that has been brought to you that you thought, oh, maybe this might be the thing that breaks this case and that brings justice to Holly and your family? Or has it always just been kind of this radio silent and you were kind of left in the dark?
With every new piece of evidence that was discovered or every new person that tried to work it, there was always a little bit of hope,
Yeah.
Oh, this will be the one. This will be the one.
And I guess as a follow-up on that, how crushing is it emotionally to know that it doesn't seem that anything
It's
has
devastating.
happened?
I mean, it's been 11 years. And they don't know no more today than they did then. And this last investigator has yet to give me a call or you a call or anything.
I mean, I know they're busy. They have a job to do.
Right.
But if they have an investigator on this case like they claim, and they're working on it, they've told us one time that they set aside Fridays. That's all they worked on Fridays. Then why can't they call on Friday? Because that's all they're doing.
Supposedly, that's all the case they were working on was Holly's case. We never got a call. And if I ever did get a hold of the investigator before this one, he would tell me about his kids being sick or he was sick or he's even had to work in the jail. Well, that's your job. It was like excuses, I hadn't got this done. I hadn't got that done. Okay.
I need a break.
Hey listeners, Stacy Smith here, co-host of the News and Brews podcast from The Times. While Taken Too Soon dives deep into Hall County's unsolved past, News and Brews keeps you up to speed on what's happening now. Join me and Shannon Casas for quick local news you can trust in the time it takes to grab your morning coffee. Search News and Brews Hall County wherever you get your podcasts or find the link in our show notes. Now back to the show.
So what happened to Roush? In July 2015, just 17 months after Holly's body was found, he was terminated from the sheriff's office. According to the Georgia Peace Officer Standards and Training Council, Roush has not worked for a Georgia law enforcement agency since then.
The first spot of trouble for Roush came in August 2014 when his supervisors discovered he had 2 cases where he had not made contact with the victim or complainant within the 48-hour policy of the department. There were also, quote, a large number of open cases that a portion of could have been closed by case review time, end quote.
3 cases were active past the 60-day mark with no additional information. Roush was given guidance on how to handle these cases and how to handle them moving forward.
On March 20th, 2015, Roush was in a wreck where he was deemed not at fault.
But according to the state law enforcement board, he was told to provide a urine sample for testing for illegal substances.
Roush, quote, advised that he could not provide the needed sample and failed to do so for 4 hours, end quote.
He then, quote, provided and stored his own sample without proper oversight, end quote.
The Times requested the reprimands, adverse actions, and internal affairs investigations in an open records request to the sheriff's office. While there is mention that he was not at fault, there was no further explanation of the urine sample incident.
2 weeks later, when Roush was on call, a sergeant tried to get in contact with him several times throughout the evening of April 7, 2015. Around 10:45 p.m., he contacted the sergeant to let him know that he was driving around in Alabama.
In the open records request, Roush went home in the afternoon that day after learning he had been fired from his part-time job. When called into the supervisor's office the next day to explain his actions, Roush said he was upset because of the loss of his part-time job and that it was, quote, the straw that broke the camel's back.
Roush asked for a voluntary demotion and was put back on uniform patrol.
What sealed his fate at Hall County came in July 2015 as a result of a different investigator's run-ins with the law.
David Treadwell pleaded guilty in May 2015 to accepting a bribe from a suspected drug dealer.
He was indicted 4 months prior, taking $200 to $300 payments to tip off the dealer if Hall County was onto him. 6 weeks after Treadwell's plea, a Hall County lieutenant received information that Roush was seen with Treadwell, a violation of Hall County's policy against associating with a convicted felon.
When interviewed by law enforcement, Roush said that he was having marital problems and needed help moving his vehicles and a ride back to Roush's house. Roush and Treadwell had been friends and continued to be friends.
Quote, sometime later, both parties got into Roush's vehicle and traveled to a tattoo shop located in the Flowery Branch area, end quote, according to an internal affairs investigation.
Roush said he was aware of Treadwell's charges and the policy against associating with convicted felons. He was cooperative and asked for a suspension, according to the internal investigation.
Roush was terminated July 27, 2015. Treadwell was sentenced in September 2015 to a year and a day in prison.
Wilma has been critical of law enforcement and how the investigators have handled Holly's case, starting with Roush at the top of the list.
I think it was just messed up because the first investigator, this was his first murder. And I think his pride wouldn't let him ask for help.
If there's someone out there that knows something, that might have that piece of evidence that could really crack this case and really bring justice to Holly and your family, what would you say to them to kind of encourage them to muster up the courage and the bravery to tell what they know to law enforcement to hopefully get this case solved?
Just to come forward, tell someone. It's been 11 years. Her kids deserve to know what happened. We deserve to know what happened. I mean, no matter how small they think it is, it could be the biggest thing in our world.
Like I've said, at this point, I know there's nothing they can do that could ever bring her back. Her kids need to know that Mama didn't just leave them, that Mom had nothing to do with this. And that if it was your daughter or your son, think of that. You'd want to know too. And you'd want to know that somebody is paying for their crimes.
Wilma was left trying to console and explain this tragedy to 2 children no older than 12 years old.
They know that she's gone, but they can't. It's like you can't explain to them how mean people are.
That someone took them.
Yes, and it's hard to teach them not to trust.
I mean, if she had cancer, then you could blame
I could understand
the cancer. If she was in a wreck, you could blame the car
I could
or the other
understand
driver.
I could understand this better. Even if she had killed herself, I could understand this better. I could handle it better. But this is just something it never goes away. It's the last thing you think of at night, and it's the first thing you think of in the morning. And knowing that they're still out there, and what if they do this to another family and tear them all to pieces, Because if they could do it to one, they could do it to another one.
Do you remember what you told Logan and McKenna to just explain, why Holly's not around anymore?
I told Logan, but they didn't just lose their mom, they lost each other. Because McKenna wasn't even at the funeral. And I just told Logan, I said, Mama's gone. I said, he said, somebody killed her. And I said, that's what they say. And he said, I know she would have never left me. And I said, no, she wouldn't have, Logan. And then big old brown eyes, just. And you can't comfort them.
The music in this podcast was by Ben Ingram.
If you like the Taken Too Soon podcast, be sure to give us a rating wherever you listen.
Tune in next week as we talk to former Hall County investigator Ashley Gillen, the person Holly's family believed to be the closest to solving the case.
If anybody could have solved it, it would have been her.
Thank you for listening. This has been Taken Too Soon, a podcast by The Times.